Good afternoon and welcome to this hour at the foot of the cross on this most solemn, somber, and serious day. A note: this for me is not an occasion for fireworks or fancy videos. This is an opportunity for us to encounter the cross. So, the structure of this hour is very, very simple indeed. It will focus on the seven last words of Jesus Christ from the cross. There will be a prayer and then a meditation, perhaps in a voice of a soldier, of Jesus's mother, one of the witnesses around the cross. Another prayer and some silence. Let us pray. We adore you, O Christ, and we bless you, because by your holy cross you have redeemed the world. Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing. Of all the things I've heard one of them say, that was the strangest. For if there's one thing we know, it's our job. And we know it because of them, because they give us so much practice. It's like they can't help themselves. And don't get me wrong, I reckon that if we were occupied too, we'd do the same. But still, it breaks my heart. Time after time, they think they can take us on, and we prove them wrong. It always goes the same way. So one or other of them gets up and starts going on about God this and God that, about how their God is a God of justice or sacrifice or hope. And then the rabble gets stirred up and the idiots get threatening. And then we have to act before it gets out of hand. So we arrest the ringleaders and string them up. It's rough justice, but it's the only way to keep the peace in a place like this. The worst of it all is that they get us wrong. We're not here because we hate them. We're not even here to convert them to our ways. Haven't we let them keep their God and their rituals? We've poured money into their economy. Their problem is small-mindedness. They don't see the big picture. They think it's all about them. And if we gave in to them, what next? If we let them go their own way, if we let them welter in their own tribal disputes, then the whole damn world might come tumbling down. And don't get me wrong, in some ways, I admire these people. I admire their tenacity. I admire their courage. But to claim we don't know what we're doing, it's ridiculous. I've been here 5 years now. This is practically my home. I know their language and I'm good at my job. They hand me the extremists, the rebels and the fanatics and the criminals. And my boys march them up the hill, nail them to the wood, and lift them up. Job done. And I like to think I get it done quickly, efficiently, with the least fuss, with the least cruelty. So don't tell me we don't know what we're doing. Sometimes I want to show these young men and women the fruits of their actions. I've dreamt of taking them down to the pit and showing them what happens to the stupid. Down to the pit where we throw their dead bodies, where we deny them their rituals and laws. Maybe then they'd learn. Maybe then they'd realize we know exactly what we're doing. We're not cruel. We just have to enforce the law. Father, forgive them. I'll give that lad credit where it's due. He was a bit different at least. Maybe that's why I remember him. There we were gambling for his things, dicing for our little extras, as we call them, and he says, "Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they're doing." Most of them are too shocked or in too much pain to say anything. They just stay there, pinned and moaning, trying to lift themselves up so that they can keep breathing. Some of them pour curses down on us. Now, I get that. That's what I'd do. And some of them pray to their helpless little God. But this one, "Father, forgive them." Imagine that. Ever since he said it, all I can think of is my own dad. A bit of a sod, to be honest. We never really got on. Forever going on about foreigners, about their dirty ways, how they were going to take over, how they'd bring the world crashing down. When I was little, he just seemed so angry, but he always tried to put family first. And I remember how, when I was little, he came rushing out of the house once when a bunch of older lads were beating me up. He seemed huge to me then, and probably to those lads too. They ran off, and he scooped me up in his arms and asked me if I was all right. It was the kindest thing he ever did, and I loved him for it. But, and this is the mad thing, I also hated him for it. I hated him because instead of hugging me and seeing if I was all right, I wanted him to run off and beat up those boys. I wanted him to take revenge for me because I couldn't, because I was too little, because it would take years before I was big enough to take the bullies on. And this fool says, "Father, forgive them." I don't know who he was talking to. Does it matter? Maybe he was just delirious. But here's a bloke who's been beaten, tortured, and nailed up, and he asks his father to forgive us. If it was me, I'd be asking my dad to take revenge. I'd be asking him to take on a world I was too weak to change. What he said frightens me. I mean, imagine a world that forgives torturers and haters and the violent. There's part of me that despises, no, hates him for asking for forgiveness for us, for those who hurt him. And there's a part of me that will love him, this stranger whose name I never knew, till my dying day. Holy God, holy and strong, holy and immortal, have mercy upon us. We adore you, O Christ, and we bless you, because by your holy cross, you have redeemed the world. Woman, here is your son. Life has taught me one thing. Laughter is as close to tears as a mother is to her son. When he said those words, "Woman, here is your son," I almost laughed. Despite all my tears, I actually almost laughed. Because of all the things he could have said, these words seemed the most unwanted, the most absurd. You know what I wanted to hear, don't you? I wanted to hear him proclaim his love for me, his mother. "Mum, I love you for all time. Mum, I'm so sorry it came to this." Yeah, I even wanted to hear, "Mum, I've let you down. I'm sorry." Because there's part of me, the part of me that wanted him to be a normal boy, an ordinary man with a wife and kids, that wanted him to say sorry for all he's put me through. And he says, "Woman, here is your son." Nodding over at that skinny kid, John, the eager one with the spots. And then he looks at John and says, "Look, here is your mother." I died then. I'm almost ashamed to admit that. Face to face as I was with my son's real death. But I did die. Or something died within me. Something I've been holding on to for all those years. The stupid hope that somehow he'd find a way to turn back from the path he'd been on. But when he said those words, I knew I'd lost him. Completely. My firstborn son. My treasure. The child who'd quickened me to joy and pain. Until that point, a tiny part of me, the secret me, the bit that was still the young and hopeful girl who'd borne this man 30 years before, still thought that even if he died young, he would die as the person I dreamt he'd be. Just an ordinary man who loved and cursed and made babies and worked and moaned about how life hard was like everyone else. This man was not dying as my son. It was like he was becoming something else. I'm still not sure what. Maybe he was becoming all of us. And so somehow all of us were dying that day. When he spoke to me, "Mother, here is your son. I died too." And my boy, my brilliant, erratic boy, who'd fallen out of trees as a child, who'd scraped his knees and cried and come to me for comfort, was gone. And I was gone too. We were all gone. Holy God, holy and strong, holy and immortal, have mercy upon us. We adore you, O Christ, and we bless you because by your holy cross you have redeemed the world. My God, why have you forsaken me? He'd always talked about God as his Father. He asked us to do the same. Indeed, he went further than that. He talked about God as Abba, as Dad, or Dada, like he was just a toddler being led by the hand. That might have been all right for him, but it was too much for the rest of us. Father, maybe, just maybe, but Abba? No. As if God, the Almighty, could ever be that close to us. As if we could ever be that close to him. Maybe that's why those words, my God, why have you forsaken me, hit us so hard. Pretty much everyone had abandoned him already. His so-called mates had fled into the night, and there was just us, really. A few women who would not let this thing happen to him alone. Maybe it was just safer for us to be there than the men. We were just women, after all. Or maybe we understood something the men could not. About loneliness. About how close birth is to death. About the shape of life. And living and dying. I think that's why they've always been scared of us. Because we remind them of the thing they want to deny. That they cannot escape death. But he'd always seemed different. He'd always seemed so sure. His bond with his God, his father, his dad, had always been the heart of him. And then in his agony, he screamed, "My God, why have you forsaken me?" The clever men, the temple men who came to make sure he was doomed, laughed then, said he was wasting his time quoting the Psalms. The Lord wouldn't save him. I heard something else. It was the sound of the God he'd lived with all his life dying for him, dying inside him. It was the sound of a human being alone and abandoned. It was the cry of a child left in the wilderness to die, of an innocent baby slaughtered in the night. When they tortured him, they tried to take everything from him. That was the point of the torture. And it was as if in this moment they'd won. I'm not so sure. He always said that the seed had to die and fall to release new life. He was not afraid of us women. He was almost one of us. In that moment, I felt he was as close to us as he'd ever been. One kind of God died for him on the cross. One kind of God abandoned him. But we didn't. We stood by him. As the old God died, a new one was born. Born between us and him. In the relationship. A God who stands by us in our hour of need. And we by him. By her. Holy God, holy and strong, holy and immortal, have mercy upon us. We adore you, O Christ, and we bless you, because by your holy cross you have redeemed the world. Truly, I tell you, today you will be with me in paradise. If I had the breath left, I'd laugh. If it wasn't agony, I'd smile. And if I had my life again, I might even change. I've lived my life as if I had forever. Maybe because I never cared for tomorrow. I never got past today. And now all I have is today. I'm not good. I've cheated and lied and stolen. I did a terrible thing to end up here. I got caught and I got what I deserved. And I accept that. That's a strange advantage of being someone like me. You know what's coming to you if you get caught, just as you know what you'll get if it goes well. I've lived like a king and I've been a beggar. I was born on a rubbish pit and I'll die on one. And I could be like the bastard over there, shouting and cursing and having a go at the only innocent sod on this mound, except I'm out of time. What's the use of pretending I'm anything other than I am anymore? I've never believed you can tell whether someone is good or bad from the look of their face. I've seen it all. I've met baby-faced killers and beautiful women who'd cut your throat as soon as look at you. I've known ugly, hulking giants of men who are as innocent as lambs. But this one, the one they nailed up between us, is different. I'd heard of him, and I'd only heard good things. But if you went only on appearances, you'd say he was as bad as me. They'd done a job on him. Smashed his face and body. One of his eyes is closed. He just looks plain ugly. When he looked at me with his good eye, I knew he shouldn't have been here with us, that he'd done nothing wrong. That piece of crap the other side of us taunting and mocking him, and despite the pain, I'd had enough, so I shouted with all I had, and I told him to shut it. And for the first time in forever, there was no lie in what I said. I had nothing to lose or gain, no tricks, and it felt good. Just once in my life, I'd done the right thing. Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. And then he was speaking and saying an impossible thing. Amen. I tell you, today you will be with me in paradise. And I was crying, not in pain or fear. All I deserve is contempt and punishment. And there was no deceit in this man. His voice as true and kind as my mother's when I'd been little, before everything went wrong. No one can save me from my fate. But he had. I was dead, but I was never more alive. And now they're coming to break my legs. And I'm scared because I know there's another justice to face. But I'm with him, and he's with me. And it's time. And for the first time, I've found someone I can trust. Holy God, holy and strong, holy and immortal, have mercy on us. We adore you, O Christ, and we bless you, because by your holy cross, you have redeemed the world. I am thirsty. Human beings are so predictable. You tickle them and they laugh. You smile at them and most times they smile back. You beat them and they cry out. Beat them long enough and they'll do anything to make it stop. I am thirsty. How many times have I heard them say that? Almost all of them say it in the end. Human beings are just so predictable. When I became a soldier, all I wanted to do was travel, fight, get laid, and then they send me here, to the backside of the empire, and all we do is try to keep down troublemakers like this, and all I do is nail them up and listen to their damned moaning and their "I am thirsties." I'm sick of it. Sick to my soul. I am thirsty. I could break his legs now, just to be done with it. Don't all these people know that I'm thirsty too? That I want things too? Doing this, I won't call it a job. Doing this to other human beings disgusts me. Makes me disgusted with my leaders, with this world, with myself. This is not what I became a soldier for. Violence I was ready for the sake of protecting the empire, but torture? And the rumor is that this man has done nothing wrong except say that humans should be free to be their truths. Is it so wrong to believe that? Tell me there's something more to life than this. Something more than men beating up other men and women and nailing them to bits of wood and turning them into human trees, creaking in the wind until there's nothing left in them but I am thirsty. Tell me, please. Tell me that there's something, just a hint of something good, something pure, like a baby's smile, like a man with clean hands. Like this man dying on a tree, like a love in this world that can bring us home. Holy God, holy and strong, holy and immortal, have mercy upon us. We adore you, O Christ, and we bless you because by your holy cross you have redeemed the world. It is finished. Why throw your life away on a stupid dream? That's what he said to me, my father Zebedee, that day James and I walked out of Capernaum trailing after Jesus. Why throw your life away? Me and my friends, Peter, Andrew, my brother James, Mary of Magdala, all the rest, have seen things you could never dream of. We've seen the dead raised to life. We've seen poor people given riches beyond their dreams. We've seen children given hope and learned that if we're truly to know God, we must become like children. Don't anyone dare tell me I've thrown my life away. There's so much that Jesus said and did I don't understand. He called us his numbskulls sometimes with a grin on his face. But this is something else. His death. He'd hinted at it, talked about it for months. We just laughed or ignored what he said. None of us ever really believed it was going to happen. I mean, how could someone as wonderful as him die? And die like this? A criminal's death. But it's happened. The man who gave us everything, my Lord and King, my friend, the person I die for, is dead. Those final words, it is finished. It is finished. I don't understand. They frighten me. They're ice in my heart. I just can't figure them out. Does he mean that that's it? Does he mean we should give up everything we've dreamed of? That we've reached the end of the road and should just go home and start fishing the lake again? My dad would love that. I can hear him now. I told you so, wasting your life on fool's dreams as he throws me a net to mend. How can any of us go back? We're not, none of us will ever be the same. We can't just pretend that the world can go back to the way it used to be. The threads of our old lives have been scattered. It is finished. Did he mean something else? That something is completed? It is finished could mean it is completed, couldn't it? But what? And how can death complete anything that's good or holy or hopeful? Jesus used to talk sometimes about the Good Shepherd, about how the Good Shepherd would lay his life down for his sheep. We used to laugh at this, All the shepherds I've ever known are useless good for nothings who wouldn't lay their lives down for anyone but themselves. But Jesus would smile back and say that the good shepherd would be the one to lay down his life for his sheep. And then he'd grin and say more than that, that he'd lay down his life for his friends. Is that what he's done here today? Holy God, holy and strong, holy and immortal, have mercy on us. We adore you, O Christ, and we bless you, because by your holy cross you have redeemed the world. Father, into your hands I commend my spirit. You think you're better than me. You think you wouldn't get carried away. You think you wouldn't fall into line. Well, you weren't there in that crowd with all the shouting and jeering and baying for blood. I didn't know this man from Adam. I'd never met him. Well, not to speak to anyway. I'd heard of him, of course, the rumours and the stories. I'd heard him speak once. The usual nonsense these boys talk about how God is going to come and save us, set us free. Please. And I'd been there when he'd gone mad in the temple. I saw how crazy he was then, what he was prepared to do. He wasn't all talk. I have to give him that. He turned my stall over without a moment's consideration to my livelihood or needs, like a stupid little thug, like all these thugs treat a woman trying to make an honest living. So, yes, I was angry. Maybe I was pleased when they took him in. Maybe I jeered extra hard, but the idiot deserved it. People like him need to be taught a lesson. They need to be taught some respect. So don't you dare judge me for giving him a hard time. Life is hard enough without mindless young men going on the rampage. And when the crowd started baying for his blood, you bet I did the same. Have you ever been in a crowd? You ever felt your blood rise? And yes, it felt good. I'm not going to lie to you. All my pent up frustration I poured out onto him. And when they nailed him up, I jeered with the loudest of them. And you know what? Maybe I'd do it again. It felt good just to get it all out. Well, except for one thing. Just before he died, he said, "Father, into your hands I commend my spirit." I don't know why it stuck with me. It wasn't like he said it dramatically, like you might think a king would, giving his final testimony for all time. The way he spoke, it was almost as if it was the opposite. He spoke like a kid would, using a child's words. "Dada, into your hands I give my spirit." I've heard people talk about how the world can stand still, about how it gets stuck or they get stuck and then it's like they can't move on. You know, when a person loses someone they love and that's it. For them it's the end of the world. I've never really believed that. But then, just then, at that moment I got a glimpse. Those words, a little boy's words, are the saddest words I've ever heard. It was like hearing your own child's death and their need for comfort and love and trust, and all you want to do is help them, but you can't. He broke me then. My heart will never be the same. Holy God, holy and strong, holy and immortal, have mercy upon us. We adore you, O Christ, and we bless you, because by your holy cross you have redeemed the world. It was 9 o'clock in the morning when they crucified him. The inscription of the charge against him read, "The King of the Jews." And with him they crucified two bandits, one on his right and one on his left. Those who passed by derided him, shaking their heads and saying, "You who would destroy the temple and build it in 3 days, save yourself. Come down from that cross." In the same way, the chief priests, along with the scribes, were also mocking him among themselves and saying, "He saved others, he cannot save himself. Let the Messiah, the King of Israel, come down from the cross now, so that we may see and believe." And those who were with him also taunted him. When it was noon, the darkness came over the whole land till 3 in the afternoon. At 3 o'clock, Jesus cried out with a loud voice, "Eloi, Eloi, lema sabachthani," which means, my God, why have you forsaken me?" When some of the bystanders heard it, they said, "Listen, he is calling for Elijah." And someone ran, filled a sponge with sour wine, put it on a stick, and gave it to him to drink, saying, "Wait, let us see whether Elijah will come to take him down." Then Jesus gave a loud cry and breathed his last, and the curtain of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom. And when the centurion who stood facing him saw that in this way he breathed his last, he said, "Truly this man was God's son." There were also women looking on from a distance. Among them were Mary Magdalene, and Mary, the mother of James the younger and of Joses, and Salome. These used to follow him and provided for him when he was in Galilee. And there were many other women who had come up with him to Jerusalem. And we pray for the final time. Holy God, holy and strong, holy and immortal, have mercy upon us.